to say that it's going.
There you go.
There we go.
Hey,
Excellent. Okay, hang on. Let me hit mine.
How is it?
Okay, just to once again, just going through attendance right now. I got regrets from Tony. He has a scheduling conflict, and I do not see Catherine on board. But again, since we have a quorum, I'm gonna just charge forward here if nobody has any objections. And if Catherine's watching this on TV or the recording, apologies for not waiting for you. Okay, again, we got requests in from both Comcast and from Verizon for letters of support. We quickly drafted, before we even heard from Comcast, a letter of support for Verizon that everybody has seen. I took the liberty of copying almost those words exactly into another letter of support for Comcast, which you also received. I got input both from Anne Marie and from MJ about what could and couldn't be in the letter, and I made those changes accordingly. Now and I'm going to defer to Brian here because he spent the most time with it. At the same time, Brian and we had a little subcommittee who was going through laboriously the 260 something odd pages of the gap networks and the mostly the BEAD document, the BEAD rules. And Brian identified what he would consider to be a trap here, and I'll let him explain it. This is relevant to both the comments on those letters, on those documents, which we're going to discuss on Thursday, as well as the letters that we are going to presumably agree to or not agree to forward on to the select board for consideration tonight because it's on the agenda. Okay, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you just to talk about that issue.
Sure. So Gap is more tolerant of fixed wireless than BEAD is. So a provider could put in a fixed wireless application to serve the underserved parcels at fixed wireless speeds, which, fixed wireless is unreliable, can go up and down in the fog. If a tree is in the way, you look at it funny, it dies. They could use that technology and therefore remove the whole area that they can reach from BEAD funding altogether. And so
it disqualifies those areas from subsequent BEAD funding. Is that basically the
certain types of fixed wireless could exclude the area from BEAD funding.
So doesn't it have to, but it has to be 100 down and 20 up, right?
For Gap, they have to, with the money, deliver 100, which is
I thought
theoretically possible.
100 or 120, because it identifies underserved as 120 in the Gap of section 4.
Oh yeah, so the underserved definition is 100 by 20, but if you take the money, you have to roll a 100 service, which is doable.
Where does it say? I mean, it says that you have to use technologies that are capable of 100, but it doesn't say you have to deliver, from what I could tell.
Yeah, so that's where it starts getting fishy. So like an FWA could like nominally do that under perfect circumstances and then not real world do that. And we basically are trading one unstable technology for another. And then nobody could do fiber with BEAD funds later. No, Verizon couldn't, do it. No one. Town couldn't do it. Comcast couldn't do it. So that's one trap
can you
there.
explain that last piece again? You're saying that if you deliver fixed wireless to a underserved location, you can't use BEAD funds?
Bingo.
So the Gap, So Gap, if you say, I'm going to hit these locations, these are the unserved parcels on the map.
Unserved or underserved?
Either, but in our
Okay.
case, it's typically underserved.
It
So
has to
these are
be.
the underserved parcels in Bourne. These are the ones I'm gonna hit. Like, pretend I'm a provider. I'm gonna hit these parcels. I need X money from BEAD or from Gap. I'm gonna use FX Wireless. Those parcels are removed from BEAD, so you can no longer target those parcels with a BEAD application since they've been hit with a Gap application or a
Is that
Gap
in BEAD
grant.
somewhere? So is that in the BEAD?
Yes,
Where's that?
yes.
Where's that?
So
In that,
Uh,
in that, thing you should have got in the mail, the page numbers are cited.
No,
I
no,
think
I'm
it's
reading, I've got the Gap RFP in front of me, and I also have the BEAD 80, the 89-page BEAD document in front of me. I'm asking
I
where
understand
in
that.
that
If
document.
you look at the thing that we worked on yesterday and I sent out to everybody last
Yeah, I read
night.
that. I read that.
Okay, the paragraph that says what Brian just said has a page citation, so it'll tell you where in the BEAD and Gap or in the
I
BEAD.
believe
thing
it's
you're going.
I
around
think it's
20.
page 14.
Probably.
Page
That
14.
would be page 4 of your document, Wendy.
I
Challenge
don't have,
process.
let's see, let me open.
We have
mine.
concerns about challenge process overview. We therefore cannot support either inclusion of fixed wireless or coaxial cable funding for wireless transmission under
No,
any
it's on-
grant program.
It's on page 1 of our document. First paragraph, I mean, beg pardon, section 2, gap considerations regarding BEAD. Because the pool of available gap funds is limited, an ISP would be incentivized to submit a gap application for what BEAD documents call unreliable service, which is the FWA, to underserved sites. That is, certain types of fixed wireless access, not fiber to home. The effect is, in italics, these sites then become ineligible for BEAD funding for reliable fiber.
Right, so I'm trying to find it in the BEAD document, and I'm in the MBI Volume 1, Volume 2.
it's the incorrectly spelled word that they use, the duplication of funding, page 14, deduplication of funding, page 14, I believe.
14 is the challenge process.
Yeah,
So
Is it the other document?
Is
Give
it
me
the
a minute, I'm
gap
trying to find
document or the BEAD Volume 1 and Volume 2? Because BEAD Volume
Gi-
1 and Volume 2 is the one you did the review on, right?
give me a minute to dig it up. It's not as small.
okay, the challenge problems, or we can't, yeah.
All right, let me see if I can see.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that would be this one.
14.
It's in the BEAD initial proposal, volume 1, volume 2, page 14, right at the top. Locations funded through MBI's GAP Networks program. Any locations that are awarded under the GAP Networks program but go under contract after MBI publishes the list of eligible locations will not be eligible for BEAD funding, and challenges to any of these locations will not be evaluated by MBI.
There we go, yeah.
So that's for eligible locations.
So there's a couple ways that goes. So the places that are by right eligible. So they're like, we have, I don't know, 400 of them in town or something in that range. Those locations would be automatically eligible for BEAD, except if a gap application attempts to serve them. And a
Yes.
gap application could be with fixed wireless. And so depending on how they word that, they could also say we're serving everything between there. And it could be a grounds to rebut a challenge. So if you don't know exactly what they're doing with the money, you can actually do more harm than good by supporting a gap application.
Right, so it has to be an eligible location before this gets any concern at all, right?
I'm
That's
not
what-
sure that's true. I think everything is considered eligible.
No, it has to
No?
be, only eligible locations for us would be underserved, which
Underserved.
as of
Yeah.
the moment is 0. We
Well,
have,
no, there's actually quite a number of them. So,
but the FCC map has everybody as fully served.
no, there's, so the problem with the way they've done the current maps is if you don't zoom in to the parcel level, you can't see them. So if you zoom all the way into the house level and scroll around, there are pinpoints that are underserved. It's a pain to find them. There's a couple on Wings, there's a couple down in Katomet, there's none in Buzzards Bay.
Yeah, this is the
Uh,
last map that came out like 2 weeks ago? Because they updated the map. I tried that and I couldn't find one in
so
Potomac.
you can find them on MBI's map, you can find them on the FCC map. I believe in the PowerPoint that MBI did, they said how many are in each town. And there was a slide where it was like 400,
I remember
400,
that.
250 to 500 in Bourne. And we asked them for the list. And funnily enough, the BEAD document says X CSV file has it. See this file, but there's no working link to the file. So like they have the data on the list and it's somewhere in the 400-ish range. So those are places that automatically would be accepted under BEAD, assuming no GAP app goes in. So a FWA GAP application goes in and it could harm all funding going forward.
I guess I'm skeptical on the FWA because it says in the GAP funding that it has to be a technology that's capable someday of doing 100 symmetric. And
Yeah,
I
so
don't think there's
the
an
details
FW.
matter.
What?
So yeah, that's why we need to know exactly like if they're doing FWA, exactly what you're doing, and is it actually a net benefit? Since what I think we really want is fiber built to
Right,
the
right,
homes as
of
much as
course, but
possible.
I don't think there's an FWA technology available on the Cape that does 100 up.
Does the technology exist at all?
Maybe. So that's what my point is, that the GAP requires that you do, you can only deploy technologies that today do 20 up and potentially in the future could do 100 up.
So, but if they
Potentially in the
use one
future
of
is
these-
meaningless.
I
so
understand, but that's basically it. It has to have potential for doing 100 up. I mean, you could say that. I mean, it isn't totally meaningless because 4G can't do it. It never will.
So I believe with the way they're wording the fixed wireless terms in GAP, the mobile antennas wouldn't work. It has to be the true fixed wireless with licensed spectrum. So if you really want to dive in the details, so let's see licensed fixed wireless FWA speed.
So the BEAD, what would be the purpose of getting the BEAD funding? Would, if in
build
the event
fiber.
Verizon and Comcast can't get GAP funding, are those entities also would apply for BEAD? If they weren't awarded GAP?
Yeah, so if they're
Okay.
not awarded GAP, they would also probably put a BEAD application in. And BEAD is less tolerant to FWA as a choice. So you're basically more forced to use fiber based on the terms of BEAD. It's not exclusively fiber, but it's basically fiber for all intents and purposes if it's a BEAD application.
So,
Right.
so the argument then is that based on this, we should not support the letters. Is that the idea?
Basically,
Without the details, it would be dangerous to write a blanket support.
Well, I don't think
Can
we're
we-
writing a blanket support, but besides that, what if we don't write the letter, we don't control them doing it anyway.
Yeah, they lose 5 points. They lose, 5 points on support of the town, and they go ahead and do it anyway.
It's right.
So what's the
One
point?
suggestion here, just let me throw this out just for discussion. We've added 2 contingencies on our support. Do we want to add a third one that says exactly that? That any technology specifically would allow 100 in the future?
I would skip it. I would not support any application use fixed wireless on the Cape, given the tree cover we've got, the fog issues, the host of things. I would just not support the technology because you're just trading one problem for another.
Is that-
Exactly.
John,
so-
you could go on depth about how the radios
Oh,
work
yeah,
and
yeah.
why
it's-
that's true.
we just have to ask Wendy about how things are on a
Sure.
foggy morning.
Sure, so that only
Um,
applies to Verizon.
Well, Verizon's
No.
doing FiOS.
Right, but Verizon does also offer what they call in-home 5G service, which is fixed
Not on-
wireless.
Well, but
Yeah.
not in Bourne.
Right,
Not
not at the
yet.
moment, but if you go on their website and you apply to get internet service from them, they will show you both, and they will say, sign up here and we'll let you know.
And
Right, so
nationwide,
we'll
it's their
give you-
primary focus is rolling out FWA since the profit margins are so stunning. They prefer to roll FWA whenever humanly possible. So and also with our call when we tried to pin them down about, are you going to be using FWA? She got a little cagey and said, there will be a place for fixed wireless on the Cape.
Yeah, like everywhere.
But for the purposes of the grant, she stated it was FiOS to home. That was the program for the grant.
Right.
Do we have that in writing, a commitment that it's going to be fiber to the home?
Well, it was stated in several meetings to,
That's-
the delegates, and
They
it
can
was stated
say
in,
anything.
in.
Why,
Is it-
why don't we repeat what she said, what Ellen Cummins said in that letter, in the Verizon letter, and say that we rely on Ms. Cummins' oral statements at several meetings that this upgrade will consist of FiOS to the home, and just
And the-
say, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
FiOS
said
to home.
FTTH. We had that because I asked that specific question at the meeting. That was my number one question.
And I
What-
asked it
what's that?
again, and I asked it again when I attended the Assembly of Delegates
Right.
meeting.
So why don't we just put in a little clause that says, we support FTTH, fiber to the home. That's all. She specifically
Yeah.
said that with
Yeah, I
regard
like
to,
that.
yeah.
I could
But
get on
we-
board with a letter that says, we do not support FWA, we do support fiber, if exclusively, like if you build anything, it's gotta be fiber.
Yeah,
I
I
think
like that.
I think what you said the first time is succinct and makes the point and requires no other elaboration,
and
which is
I
we
think it
would not
cuts to-
support FWA under any circumstances. However,
I
we
think it
would
cuts to
support
Comcast as well.
installation of fiber to
Right.
the home.
All right, so I think we have to live edit this letter if we're going to approve it in this meeting.
Sure, call it up.
One of the other points is, I think too, is, they still have the choice of whether they want to submit this letter or not with their application, right?
course.
So I think
Sure.
asking, ask.
ask them
Yeah,
about
we
this
did-
again.
No,
We
I'm
just-
just saying, in the, the criteria, why not put the ask in or the request in? Because, ultimately it's their choice whether they submit the letter or not. So if we want to put in,
Wait,
the FTTH, let's put it in.
Well,
Right,
that's
just put it in
that's
as right. It's a requirement that we support FTTH,
Right.
and that's fine. And now in the case of Comcast, I don't know if we can do that. We can say direct to home service.
Actually, you can. So Comcast does offer some customers fiber. So they have fiber deep into their network. There's fiber to the nodes. Sometimes they link fiber direct to the customer. So as far as any grant application, Comcast is trying to fill in the holes in their network, which is all those unserved parcels that are, the 500 of them that don't have Comcast. They could run fiber to those last remaining customers if they wanted to.
Yes, but that's not very feasible because they don't have OLTs.
Yeah, they don't have the. I can tell you from experience in my previous working life. One of the last things I did was to install a 1 gig bidirectional fiber for NBC, and basically what it did, rather a service, ISP service. So it came literally fiber to the pole that was about 100 feet from the building, and from there jumped to coax because they didn't have any in that case commercial modems that would handle fiber directly.
Essentially, that's right. They don't have ONTs and OLTs. So as John said, they may go the last 100 feet coax.
So
Can
then, can we specify that anything they roll has to be, so the problem is they just expand their network and they cut Bourne out completely from any grant funding for fiber in the future. So how do we word it so that they can only roll out better than what we currently have
Well,
here?
so the gap proposal says any technology deployed today has to do 20 up and has to support 100, has to be shown to support 100 up.
But the existing network they have can do 100 up. I've
that's-
seen
but
the
that's
text
the-
plug into
right.
it at 100 up. So they would just roll out the same shit we have now.
Right, but I don't see how we could force them to do something that's, in other words, why would they submit our letter at that point, right?
Because
That-
if they don't have a letter of support, they lose some points.
Only
And
for Bourne.
I understand that, but if this gets publicized more, they might not get letters of support from anybody.
I guess, but
That's gonna, well, even if it's only 5 points, it's still a significant lack of support for what they're trying to pull over our eyes.
I
Maybe
guess,
we'll-
but I mean, some town's gonna go for it and they're gonna get the funding. That's
Well,
what's gonna
maybe we
happen
can
in the
help
end.
them out with that.
Right.
Well,
But the
here's
last thing we want is to get more, like, unless they're rolling out something better. So the risk is we don't, the risk is we never solve the problem. So if we allow Comcast to take the money and roll out what they're using, the problem never gets solved because there won't ever be any more funding because you've wiped out all
No,
the.
but what Comcast uses today is capable of way more than what we have in Bourne. The technology is
Yes,
not the
but
limitation.
That's what I was going to
Yeah,
say.
but then-
If you go to my old town in Natick, the difference in infrastructure, because I know people that had the Comcast service. I mean, it was much more modern. It was fiber right up to close because literally one of their boxes was on a pole outside of my house. So they had, it was much more robust. And I don't know if we could put a letter that says something like 99.99% reliable or something like that, because people that had it in Natick didn't have the same problems we have down here. And you just have to take a walk down the street or look at that picture that somebody submitted to Bob to see what the difference is. It's just a question of really crappy execution down here because they don't want to put the money into it. And I don't know of any way, with the exception of saying you have to deliver us 4.9 service basically, and guarantee that. Because right now that is their problem, is when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. And it doesn't work a lot of the time for a lot of people on a consistent basis. It's all over the place.
Yeah, and we've already got the data from the Cape Cod Commission's compiled from Microsoft and all that. The current Comcast we have isn't great. And if they are expanding that without upgrading the whole network, it's just a kind of waste of the grant money, and it's a waste
Exactly.
of all future grant money. So, if Comcast's proposal was just to expand what they got, I'd say we should object to that.
I don't
Unless they
understand
come forward
why.
with a better way to, well, because it's bad, the Comcast signal down there is bad as it is. So if they're just expanding more of what they got, it's not improving the situation.
But it is. The current technology is capable, right? So if they're putting money into improving the current technology, then that's what we want.
And
Right,
how
but
do
They're
we,
not, they're just expanding the range of the
Are-
network to the missing houses.
Are we presently debating what we're going to put in those letters or whether we're going to send them at all? Or are we going to go down the rabbit hole of specifics of technology right now?
I think
I
we're
think-
debating whether we're gonna support the letters and, right, the
Okay.
discussion here is what's going in the letter.
I would, if we could, perhaps, as Jed suggested, live edit, first the Verizon letter and live edit one of the bullets to include, future 100 up, 100, as well as 20 up now and 100 up in the future, some technology with 4.9's reliability as is
It's
provided
too
by.
low. I think we really need to be biased here, and we want fiber type speed, type service, type reliability. So just saying we're okay at 100 is just trading a new bottleneck for the old one.
So with Verizon, I think a third paragraph that says it's gotta be fiber.
Mm.
Just say
sounds
fiber to the
legitimate
home.
me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
FTTH.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
as stated by, this is to Ellen Cummings, as you stated it in several public meetings verbally.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, so do we want to work on that letter, get that one done here?
I think
Yep.
so. Who's capable of quickly pulling that up? Who's facile enough with Zoom to get that up?
Mauricio. Let me see. Let me pull that.
There it
There it
is.
is.
Oh, that was quick.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, I would not have been able to do
It's-
that.
Okay,
Uh,
Okay.
do we want to do this? Do we want to edit the first bullet or change or add another bullet?
Well, the first bullet needs to have its italicized bolded S fixed, but otherwise,
I think that has to stay there. I think you add a
Yeah.
third.
yeah.
Or
add a third
right
bullet.
after that, a second bullet.
Oh, right, oh, I see, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before ACP.
Yeah, and turn off italics.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is to Verizon.
This is to Verizon. How about just some rough wording here off the top of my head? As you stated in several public meetings, Verizon will implement this with fiber to the home
And not FWA.
Right.
and not
Yes.
FWA.
Right.
Or we'll use this grant money to supply fiber to the home and not FWA.
Right. Do
Yeah,
we
let's get
actually
that
want to
one
say,
Rather than-
do we actually
rather
want to
than
say the
just
words
implement-
fiber to the home and
Yeah, I would spell that
wireless?
out.
Yeah.
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 Spell both of those out and then put, you can put those others in parentheses.
Is it appropriate to say this gap funding would be applied to, or just you'll implement it? You know, that could be pretty.
Verizon will
Applied
use this
to-
funding to implement.
Yeah, we'll use this gap funding.
Well, just say this funding because they have co-funding they're throwing in
Yeah,
too.
okay.
Yeah.
This funding. This funding
Yeah.
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 to implement.
All right,
and I would-
FWA,
Right.
she did not particularly discuss FWA from my hearing.
No, she
I think-
No,
didn't.
but when I asked her specifically about what their plans were,
Mhm.
she said, with this funding, she said specifically FTTH, fiber to the home. I asked her directly. I don't know, we have a
Right.
recording of that someplace I would get that the Cape Cod Tech Council does.
I would put a
I don't think
period
we-
after the parenthetical, okay, and then if we say, and just say the town of Bourne does not support implementation of FWA.
Yep, with any grant funds. So let's be specific about that because FWA is a wonderful tool. It has its place, but it should never be a recipient of grant funding. It is already extraordinarily profitable and super unreliable. It does not need subsidies. They can roll it if they feel like it.
what is
But
what
not-
specifically does FWA stand for?
Well, that's what we gotta put, you gotta put that in there. It stands fixed wireless access. It means that they're
Right.
basically making a hotspot in your home for cell service, which has limited bandwidth to begin with. And it has limited reception capability because of the fact that it's line of sight. So if you live next to the cell tower and you're willing to deal with somewhat lower speeds, it's fine. If you don't live within a direct line of sight of the cell tower, i.e. Wendy, then you get money you get free service every month from T-Mobile because they can't fulfill
Because
their
that's about
contract.
all because that's
So-
about what it's worth.
Yeah.
One
Capitalize
modification, because we want to
capitalize
be,
the T in town.
we
Because
just
it's
want
a
to make
form
be clear, we do not support fixed wireless for grant to be a recipient of grant funds. So we don't want to block them from building FWA because
Right,
it does create competition, but we do
do
want to
not-
block them from
there you
grant
go. Grant funds.
funding it. So it's a very, very
Funding.
precise about that.
I would just say use of this funding, because again, well, you're right, grant funding. If they want to use their
Yeah.
co-funding for it,
Yeah.
fine, it's their
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
their money. Yeah.
Town
Yeah, if they
gets
just want to
cat-
build it, cool. It creates
The word-
competition,
yeah.
that's fine,
the
but
word
don't take
town
away
gets
BEAD to do it.
capitalized while you're in there. Hello?
Wendy, say that again, Wendy?
The word town, the town of Bourne, that's
Oh.
capitalized. It's capital T. There we go.
Okay. Is everyone happy with that change?
Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers it.
Should
It
we
does
say
like it.
doesn't support using grant funding for fixed wireless? Or just that?
I would just keep it as grant funding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. They know
Okay.
exactly
Fine.
what that means.
I would like to
Okay.
make a motion, we accept this letter from
Mhm.
Verizon.
Do I hear a second?
Second,
Second,
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the letter, just say
Aye.
aye.
I
Any opposed? Okay, great. Okay, Anne Marie, this is one that I will forward on, and we're now going to move on to the Comcast letter, which is more problematic.
Right. I have an idea for Comcast that we ask them that their service has to be as reliable as if fiber providers in the town. Okay, so for instance, we have numbers from Open Cape, right, of 4 nines. Is that correct?
That's not quantifiable.
Okay. Well, I mean, right in their advertising that they tell you that they've got 4.9 reliability.
Not quantifiable.
Not quantifiable enough for this. Not
Okay.
worth. Yeah,
I
agree,
just don't
agree
know
with
how
you.
you can force them to improve some of the cruddy installs that are out there.
is there some reason we couldn't use pretty much the same language as in the Verizon thing to
Well, I don't
communicate
see, I don't see
communicate our
Comcast,
intent?
I don't see Comcast deploying fixed wireless.
You never
They
know
don't, they
about.
don't have the infrastructure right now. Comcast's cell phone service is basically leasing from Verizon.
Correct.
Mhm. Yes.
So that's but the question is as Brian has pointed out, are they going to just do what they do when I go over here and I go right into Bob's neighborhood and I see taps upon taps of they just keep splitting this crappy coax up and then it comes down some ratty pole someplace and it's awful.
So,
You know.
so do we say we only support them rolling DOS's 4 with grant money? How specific do we got to get in order to fix the problem?
Ooh,
'Cause
They won't
that'd be a tough one.
They won't submit that letter.
Yeah, no, they won't touch that.
So the paths here are no letter, letter opposed, or letter in support under conditions. So what conditions would we need for us to move forward with a letter?
And I don't think we can. What's the point of being afraid of what they're going to do with our letter? If they don't like it, they're not going to submit it anyway. So we might as
Right.
well tell them what we think.
Right, but
Well,
requiring DOCSIS 4, it's not gonna happen. We shouldn't spend the time writing it down.
Right.
It's just so far away from where they are.
But right now, if for instance, if they could deliver what they actually promise or promote of
They can't.
reliable, service, then I mean, because I watch my service go up and down all day long. Some days
Oh,
my
yeah.
wife will say to me, "Why is this taking so long to download?" And then you do a speed test and it looks okay, and then it comes and goes depending on what's going on.
Mhm.
And if they could deliver their service consistently, it would be fine. Their problem is they can't because of their aged infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because again, I saw when you in the Metro West area of Boston, they delivered pretty decent service. It wasn't problematical, but it was done in a much cleaner way. They just don't want to put the money into improving their. It's like driving down a road with potholes in it. That's basically exactly what we're dealing with here. If they went around and fixed all the potholes or repaved the road, then what they offered would probably be not as good as fiber, but it might be adequate. But they don't seem to want to do it until literally your service goes out completely, and then ask Bob what he gets. I mean, it comes and goes.
Yeah,
If you're
it's
looking-
it's
if you're
impossible
looking,
to get
though,
internet
at-
on our street.
If you're looking at the exponential, and I think it is almost exponential growth of demand for broadband, saying, well, just, fix the potholes and we'll be good enough. It won't be. Those, those repairs will be crap in 5 years and we won't be any better off.
Sure, but what's the text you put in the letter for that? I mean,
I
Right,
know, I
right.
know.
so here's
How do
some
you
background.
state
Just
what John said? How do you, put in that? Do you state that, we support infrastructure that will consistently bring reliable high-speed connectivity, broadband connectivity? I mean, do we state that as a bullet?
Do we have to start even more direct? We don't currently view the
Current
Comcast deployment in our town as satisfactory. So
Well, we said that in the first bullet, right? We currently do not have adequate. Somewhat stated in the first bullet. Should we elaborate there?
In all areas of Bourne that do not have adequate and reliable broadband connectivity. Okay.
Well, so gap is not going to be, gap is different than bead. So you can't do like an area challenge for gap. Gap is strictly the parcels on the list. So
Right,
it's a strict,
right.
these are the 400 houses. And so Comcast literally could just roll the same exact stuff to those 400 houses, and that's their application. They could win a gap application. They'd probably win because it'll be the lowest cost deployment. It'd be cheaper, and they could, they'd take the smallest amount of gap funding or whatever and win some points there. And they could probably beat Verizon on an app doing that on the points. So we need to be pretty clear. If we're not okay with more of what we've got, we need to make sure we say that somehow.
Right, for all of Bourne too. I think you could ask, not just specifically for targeted, but like Verizon, she also stated that she was gonna, not just the underserved areas, but to Bourne,
Yeah, but
to
this
the
is for Gap.
community. Yeah,
Well,
for Gap.
Well, Gap is only 20 million, so it's 200 miles of fiber. So how many towns in the state are going to, get 20 miles each? So they're not going to,
Right, but in this request to Comcast, I mean, I think we should state that we state the inequity, inadequacies of our current situation and stress that, we support specifically consistently high-speed broadband connectivity. I don't know. Or
I
the
mean,
infrastructure.
Yeah, we can't say better than or equal to competitive fiber services without specifying a specific number. Because I mean, we know what Open Cape will promise.
well, first, Open Cape doesn't deliver to residential outside of MDUs.
Right.
But they do state in their thing 9999 service.
Yeah, well, I've seen it stated 3 different ways, John. 4 nines, 5 nines, 6 nines in Open Cape documentation, and there's no technical backup to any of those numbers. They don't have any data. So I don't think we can go on that.
So you want to use the word, well, you've got as documented by speed test data. Okay. How would you say that? They will commit to regular audits on their deliverables.
I don't see a scenario where we can support Comcast plan here, honestly. So if the Comcast would win the gap, if they put an application in, you pay me 500 grand a year to plan this out for them. What I would do is I would put in an application to cover those 500 houses. They're all going to be non-standard drops. So I'd
What's a
take all.
What's a non-standard drop?
So you're allowed to ask up for 10,000 for individual parcels that are really screwed up and hard to reach.
Oh, that's
So
right. Got it. Yep.
So I'd expand to the 500, and then I'd take the list. It's only 500 per town. I would then ask for the 10,000 per house as the non-standard thing. I'd try to get as many of them as humanly possible, and I would expand So I would hit all those houses in a gap application so that Verizon, Town of Bourne, Open Cape, Go NetSpeed, anybody,
Couldn't get BEAD
Uh,
money for it.
couldn't get BEAD money. And that's how I would do it.
So I suspect that Verizon and Comcast will both get funded here. I don't think it's gonna be one or the other.
Someone's
Is there
gonna
any-
win, though.
Is there any way to say, we would support anything you'd like to do so long as it doesn't block BEAD funding in the future?
Well, it's not their choice. It's going to be the choice of MBI.
Well, I
You know,
understand that, but okay, then meets criteria for, or something like that.
You could just say we don't support using grant funds for expanding standard coax service.
Substandard coax, yeah.
Right,
Okay,
right.
If you want to propose another solution like next generation coax, fiber to the home, fiber to the pole that could do gigabit up down, let's talk. I don't know what's on their menu, but we do not support expanding what we have.
But but what we have today can do 100 up and 100 down.
But it's still, I've seen them take the thing, take off the modem, put a little reader on there, and they're getting 100 to my house. So they can do it. They're
don't do it.
throttling it, but it's still unreliable. Like we have it go down.
I get that, but the technology is sufficient. The implementation is not.
Yeah.
Why don't we state that?
There's your
Yeah.
there's your word consistent. So they can't be throttling and going up and down all the goddamn time.
Why don't we do a first bullet that basically says exactly what Jed just said, that we support 120 with future capability of 100. However, we note that the current implementation of this technology in Bourne is highly inconsistent and unreliable, and does not meet the expectations of customers. And we would presume that some of Comcast's co-funding for this grant would be used. It's a little wordy, but
Well, yeah. Okay.
what are we going to ask for? Okay,
Okay,
we want them to fix what they've got.
Type it all in and we'll wordsmith it. Okay.
I
But
get that.
get all your ideas in there first, and then we'll fix it.
Mm.
Okay.
We're concerned with the current service, right? We're
The current
concerned with,
implementation, the current.
Yeah, and
implementation.
I don't think you should say customer expectations. I think you say that standard, that 100 standard.
Right.
Because customer expectations, they can
It's-
say, oh, well, what do customers know? But a standard is a standard. And if you want to
Yeah, let's
commit
get it
to
all
100
down
to
and we
100,
Let's get it all written down and then we can talk.
Yeah.
Because, I think we all have objections to pieces of this and we're gonna have to sort through them.
we can fix it.
just throw out more things and I'll just,
Uh,
Because 100 is not enough for me. I would cry. if that's what you're rolling with all this grant money, that is a disgrace.
But you can buy
Like-
you can buy gig symmetrical today
From
from Comcast.
Comcast.
If
Yeah.
you use their modem.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Can anybody in Bourne order gig symmetrical from them?
I don't
I
know.
believe so, yes.
I've tried and they've told me to not,
say it.
they won't
Yeah.
do it.
Well, my brother is in Mo Beach and he gets 1 gig service. So
The down, but not up.
not
Right.
Do
sure
they
about
get-
what he's getting
Yeah.
for up. I don't think he
Oh, I
even
see. Yeah,
checks.
you might be right. It might only be.
The cap's at
200 up.
35 up. Their best.
Yeah, that's right.
plan
It's what
only goes
it's
to
right. That's
35.
right. It's 35 up.
Yeah, you're
It's
right.
because of Jed. It's because of the modulation scheme they're using. If you look at it, they just
Mhm.
don't allow the They're not. If you put a different modulator on there, you could do it, but then that would effectively take away from their download speeds.
Yep.
It's a question of balance. What they're doing is say, look, most people just want to watch movies on Netflix. Therefore, we don't need a lot of upload speed.
So we're
Okay,
gonna
is-
stick with 120, 100, because that's what's being pushed by the FCC and NTIA.
yeah, yeah.
So, but
But-
we are
But
concerned
it's
with.
not,
the-
it's not enough though, like in reality, like.
Right, but in terms of the letter, we're not gonna change that.
Well,
Well,
can we
why-
say we are concerned with your current implementation and unreliable service with current or with your current hardware or your cable or whatever.
Infrastructure.
The technology is capable. They just have poor,
just don't do
it's
it.
a poor implementation. And that's
Right.
what leads to the unreliable service.
So why can't we reword this 100? Like, if you do fiber, it's going to be like 940 by, usually 940 or 800 or so. If you do, like 100, like you can go above it. Like, so whatever you roll, you can beat the numbers. You don't have to just hit exactly that. So I feel like if we accept 100 for what the money's being used for, we're just setting ourselves up for the future to also be terrible.
But this,
And
so why
have-
don't you
and-
get rid of that? Why not just start with the word, "We are concerned with your current implementation"?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's start there.
Get rid of the but.
Skip everything before there.
No, well, I don't know about that. Well, okay.
We are concerned with your current implementation and unreliable service. There you go. We can all agree on that one.
Yeah.
Certainly true.
First time we've ever agreed on Comcast.
Is there a way to?
Should we? Can we? Can
Is there a way to put something in that sentence about the current coax and all that other sort of thing, the actual hardware that is resulting in the crappy service, so they will be put on notice that just installing more of the same isn't going to cut it? Can we do that?
Well, this technology is fine. They need to fix what's broken. That's really a better way to look at this.
Okay, so it's
so should we state something
it's
to the effect
systemic
that
then?
we hope that grant monies will be used to
Improve the quality of the current
Improve-
implementation.
yeah.
Not
We
even say,
don't- we don't
say we
hope
support the use of grant money to
We do
improve
not.
the implementation of current service and future improvements.
Wait a minute,
I don't know.
we support use of grant money to be used.
No, we'll fix it. Just write it down first, and then we'll fix the grammar.
All right, so we support use of grant money to be used for
Improving the current,
improving.
improving, yes.
How about,
The current,
I'll be
the
explicit, how
current-
about repairing?
Yeah,
I like that, yes.
The
improvements and repairs. Repairs and
repairs and
improvements.
improvements.
Repairs and improvements.
Right, repairing and improving.
But we got to quantify that, because otherwise they're just going to increase at 1% and shut us up. And then
Meaningful.
block us from being.
Yeah, good idea, meaningful.
Meaningful repairs and improvements?
Yes.
But- What's meaningful?
To deliver service demands for the future as projected by the FCC that says we should have, I mean, this is like repaving the road and not just fixing the damn potholes.
How about consistently deliver their advertised rates?
I
Their
like
advertised
that.
speeds.
We
like that.
support use of the grant money to be used for meaningful repairs and improvements. To allow for consistently achieving advertised rates.
Right.
That they already argue that they consistently achieve that.
I
so-
totally get that. But
But
I think
we
it
know
makes
they
a
don't.
point.
As documented by speed testing.
Well,
Our speed testing finds your service wildly inconsistent and huge service degradations in the summer. Any use of grant funding would have to ameliorate that situation entirely.
That's an idea.
That sentence goes up after the first sentence.
Yeah.
We're concerned with current implementation and unreliable service.
And
Our
what-
speed
what-
testing documents. Yeah, right there.
Right there. Yeah, that's very good, Brian.
Excellent. Our speed testing documents. What was that?
Yeah.
That was lovely.
consistent service degradation in the summer.
Seasonal. Consistent seasonal service degradation.
Let's just say in the summer. It's fine. They're
Yeah.
gonna see.
Especially.
Just
Or-
consistent service degradation and unreliability, especially during peak season.
There you go. And unreliability, especially during peak seasons. Period. Here we go. We would support things. There we go. That's great.
Yeah, there you go. Advertising achieving advertised rates on a consistent basis.
Consistently achieving.
Yeah.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute, where?
Right. In other words, be used for minimal repairs and improvements to allow for. You said are consistently achieving advertised rates. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
There you
So
go.
we
Right
got-
there.
so-
That's it. So
yeah, but you got to fix the first phrase so you don't use twice. We support grant money use
the
for.
implementation of grant money.
No, we support use. We support grant money use for. Grant money use for. Use for. You don't
Yeah.
need to be used for. There we go. There you go.
And then after advertised rates and uptime improvements. Uptime and
Yeah.
reliability improvements, because it's not just speed here, because they can take a speed test at some time and say, look, you're getting it, but then it's just gone the next minute. You know,
Yeah,
Bob
that's
drops off every time we try to do anything. My software dies because it's lost connection to the server. I can't work in Kenwood Road when I'm there. Everything just halts.
I like it.
Be concerned with your current implementation and unreliable service. Is this a fragment? Are speed testing documents consistent service degradation and unreliability, especially during peak season?
Oh, no, there's no comma after documents.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
that's the
doc-
verb.
Right.
It's not
Oh,
it's not a
oh,
noun.
Might be
Oh,
That's the
singular
verb, yeah.
document. Document.
No,
Speed
the
testing.
speed testing
Consistent
documents.
service. There we go. That's better.
Yeah.
Documents.
Consistent. And we want to take out the comma after degradation.
There's always a comma before ands.
No, there isn't. Only when you have more than three or more.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep,
We
strunk and
might, we
white.
might need to get specific here due to the way gap is written as it's literally filling in the gaps in the networks. So after improvements, we might need a new sentence that says, we do not support an expansion that uses the same implementation we are currently saddled with here in Bourne.
Okay. Especially during peak seasons period. Therefore,
Before we do that, I mean,
not
again, so they're gonna expand HFC with DOCSIS 3.1. What
So it's going to be,
that's what it's gonna be. I mean, that's the whole town.
Mhm.
we don't want that. It's
Right.
it's bad.
But if we don't want that, I mean, that's what like I said, they're not gonna do any of the newer technologies in Bourne with gap funding. I mean,
Okay, so how about after you say, especially during peak seasons, after period, therefore, we cannot support use, we cannot support grant money to expand service using current technology.
but we do,
Well,
that's what they're gonna
Mhm.
do. The issue we'd have is
Yeah.
not with the technology, in my opinion.
Well,
We don't have an
Right.
issue with the technology. We
Right.
have an issue with a degraded implementation, which is what we covered here.
Right.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, yes.
Okay.
It's crappy execution. Basically, when they want to add a house on, they add on a crappy tap up on a
Yeah.
pole someplace. And sometimes, like I've said, the equipment is not even rated for outdoor use. That's what really gets me. So
And
they
limited
get a heavy
backhauls.
rain, and then all of a sudden Bob's internet goes away.
They've overloaded the nodes too. So they have, 2,000 people on a single
Right.
fiber node. So the bottleneck isn't just the coax, it's also their fiber network's undersized.
Correct, that's
Yeah.
true.
They say there's 2,000 people in Florida, they put 500 on a node. It's gonna have,
So right, but
have
I
to
mean,
pile up.
we've tried to take a shot at that, right, with meaningful repairs and improvements.
Yeah.
And that would
Yeah.
include node splits, in my opinion.
how about?
Maybe
how
let's
about
be specific,
saying-
node splits.
How about say we are concerned with your current undersized?
I think it's
Well-
the implementation, like, Jeff
Due
was
to-
saying.
due to
I mean, I think
unders-
we've addressed the program. We have to remember what program they're going to be using that's different from Verizon. So we have to, I think we've stated in here specifically what's unacceptable and what we expect.
I'm not ready to support this letter. I
So,
think if
so to
they
Brian's
expand what they
point-
have, it's gonna
So-
block us from all future funding. So I
So to-
wouldn't be supportive of this.
So to Brian's point, after the word improvements, can we put in parentheses, the words node splits?
E.g.,
E.g.
NODE,
node splits.
yeah, NODE,
it's E.g. first.
I'm fine with that, yep,
E
E dot,
period,
G
G
dot.
period, comma.
yeah, node splits.
Anything else, so long as we're looking for examples? Because E.g. means for example.
That's the biggest improvement they could make,
Yeah.
Okay.
clearly, with DOCSIS 3.1, absolutely.
They
Well,
got,
we
they
have
almost,
to
they
say
split
that.
them 4 ways in our case, because they've had them so overloaded.
There we go. How's that look? That looks pretty decent.
I'm fine with it.
I'm
Yeah,
opposed.
I get Brian's point, but I'm also fine with it because any improvement is an improvement. I mean,
But we then never get fiber. So if
Oh.
we allow them to build gap using the existing technology, we are blocked from BEAD.
right. The problem is that if we alienate them and they are right now supporting the entire town, including our PEG system, what is that going to do to us?
Well, that's a whole, yeah.
I'm
So
political.
I still think, well, there's still opportunity down the road for them to do what's called the mid-split. So to John's point, they could broaden the spectrum, take away some of the download spectrum, and then turn it over to upload. So
Cool.
they can clearly do it in the future, but I don't see it happening in the next year or two.
And
I-
yeah, if they use grant money, we're SOL. Anybody who wants to fix the problem with, properly done fiber, so it's very risky sending this letter. This will do more harm.
I
If
guess I don't agree. I mean,
Are you
I-
concerned that they're gonna like take their ball and go home?
oh,
and
no,
leave,
no,
and
I
leave
No,
Bourne
think,
no,
high
they're-
and dry? I doubt that.
no, I
No, they're
think
gonna
actually the biggest thing that's gonna affect them is FiOS. If FiOS comes into town, then that's the thing that they're gonna react to, in my opinion.
They're gonna have to address it. They're
Correct.
just,
Yes.
Yeah,
if
we
they
will
want
FiOS
to,
see
comes in, they're
exactly
gonna
what
have to
happens.
fix it.
if-
they're going to have to, and maybe this forces them, especially if Verizon's bringing FTTH.
Yeah.
I mean,
If
How
we
about-
It's
do
gonna
this
create
letter
competition.
though, they could to block Verizon, they could put a proposal in to fix their gaps and take away the money from Verizon. So like this gap, the problem with the way gap's written is it can be used offensively. So as much as we'd like to hope that they're gonna do the right thing, gap can be used as a weapon to block competitors from rolling better solutions. So I can't support a letter that doesn't make it clear that this doesn't block them from using more of what they've been doing. And it sets us up to not be able to get fiber from either Verizon, the town doing it, or another provider. I don't think I'd support Comcast without a detailed plan.
but they don't need they don't have to
Right.
give us a detailed plan, and they can move forward regardless.
Correct.
They can,
So what-
but
Yeah.
we shouldn't support it if we don't know, if we aren't sure that this is in the best interest of Bourne in the long run. It's dangerous to support something that isn't in the best long-term interest of the town.
Well, I think what's in the best long interest of the town, in my opinion, is having two viable internet providers.
Yeah, and
Who
this
compete.
supporting Comcast in a gap would make it harder for a second provider.
So the argument is that
what's-
you support Verizon but not Comcast, thereby making it more likely that Verizon gets the gap funding and not Comcast.
If someone's gonna get it, it shouldn't be Comcast rolling the same. It's not gonna move the needle at fixing the problem townwide. So I don't think we should support it without, if Comcast had come to us and said, look, we're gonna be rolling DOCSIS 4. and or we're going to be rolling fiber deeper into the network. We're going to be splitting nodes, or like, they were really exacting. This is how we are going to solve this.
Mhm.
Then that's a totally different situation. Here, we're trying to guess what they might be able to do to fix it.
Can you put some of those things in
Well-
there with your, for example,
Well,
node
well,
split,
I think-
fiber to the home, what the other things that we would like to see them get off their butts and do?
Well, can we put a sentence in there at the end of the second bullet point that just said, therefore, we would only support this grant money going to Comcast if they are willing to address the above mentioned issues.
Well, that's what it says here, that it's
It does say
conditional.
that.
Yeah,
already
it's
says that.
conditional.
No, but
Yeah.
I
It's
think Brian,
conditional.
I think Brian's argument's going in a different direction here. It's letter or no letter, not the text. And he's making an interesting point in that if we support Verizon and not Comcast, then we're basically trying to tilt the weight towards Verizon to make it easier for Verizon to get into town, which I think we're all in favor of, right? That the best thing that could happen in town right now is that Verizon becomes a viable supplier of internet on the Cape side.
Or any other provider, period. Just competition is what we.
I guess, yes, but Verizon's the one that's going to make a difference to Comcast.
This is true.
So
Look, Verizon is already,
Could you say for meaningful repairs and competitive improvements?
again, I'm starting to, what I'm trying to do is support Brian's argument of not
Yeah.
providing a letter to Comcast, right?
Mhm.
And so the argument goes like this, that Verizon needs help because they're not here. But Comcast doesn't need help because they're here and they're waffling. So why don't we just give a letter to Verizon to make it easier for them to get on the Cape side and not provide that letter to Comcast to make it, because then Verizon gets more points, right? They end up being more likely to get the gap funding than Comcast. That's the argument.
now question for Anne, let me question Anne Marie right now. How receptive do you think the rest of the select board would be to us supporting one competitor over another based on likely technology and the future needs of Bourne? Especially given that Comcast is a provider, among other things, for Bourne Community TV, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think they're going to sway with, the equity piece, that if, we're sending a letter to Verizon, we should send a letter to Comcast.
But do they both have to be
sure.
supportive letters? We can send them letters.
Right.
We could send a letter of non-support.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Precisely.
No, but we could send a poison pill, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a hard sell to do one and not the other, given the, given the relationship that the town has with Comcast, right?
Yeah, but
And
but Anne
and
Marie,
if
if it's not beneficial to the town, which it
I
demonstrably wouldn't be.
I get it, I understand it, but if you're looking at the town and there's an inkling that, this can improve services to people,
Mm.
then why are
Okay.
we not doing it? I
All
mean,
right, so let's make that second
I mean, it's
sentence.
about that, right? If it's going to improve service some way, somehow, they're going to support. Why wouldn't we support that? If
Then
it
we need to explain
out-
why we don't support it.
Well,
Yeah.
no, how about we just make
Precisely.
that last sentence and the second sentence of bullet 2 more prescriptive? Let me just throw something out. We could say that we support grant money for fixing broken coax, or no, broken isn't the right word,
Degraded.
for fixing degraded coax and COAX.
Should I say coaxial?
No, it's
Coaxial, okay.
coax is fine.
Okay,
COAX, yeah.
COAX.
There's an O in there.
coax.
Oops, that's his
no,
No,
O.
it's
no.
CO.
Wait a minute.
No dash.
Nope, that's it. That's zero. There we go.
Here you go. AX.
And for splitting nodes to under 500 homes passed.
That would make a dent.
500,
Homes
Homes.
passed. That's a
PAST.
yeah. PASSED.
Oh, SSCD.
Yeah,
Oops, there we go.
and
Try that
then
again.
delete the rest of the sentence,
ED, period.
and then delete the rest of the sentence.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that
I
will-
think that
Oh.
that
Yeah,
Hold on.
don't you want to leave the consistently advertised rates?
No, because that's not measurable. In my opinion, if they split the nodes to 500 homes passed, they pretty much deal with all the other issues, right? We're trying to be quantitative and prescriptive here.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because they could basically say, oh, we've got great uptime and then walk away. I've been through that with them on the cable TV side.
Hmm.
Well, then we're still stuck with 1.2 down and 35 up, which is still terrible.
We're stuck with the 35 up until they do bid splits, and that's going to cost a lot more than the gap money.
So should we ask for mid splits in here?
That's an interesting one. We could.
Because
How about ask for mid split so that they can, so they will be able to achieve the 100 Mbps up.
All right. Let's try
maybe
that.
higher. Can we aim? What's the what can mid splits do? Like how high can they
Well,
go?
there's very few going over 100 up. I mean, 100 symmetrical is going to be, especially here. They're going to have to get down under 100 homes passed to do better than 100 up, I think.
Hmm.
It's
'Cause
going to be
we'd
mostly in
want-
very dense areas, like in urban areas where they'll do this. But I like just the idea of doing the mid split. I mean, we could even say we wanted them to extend the spectrum to 1.8 gigahertz, extend the spectrum to 1.8 gigahertz, and extend mid splits for more upstream capability.
What kind of speed are we
I should say
talking?
introduce instead of extend. Yeah, for
Introduce.
upstream capability. So where it says, so extend the spectrum to 1.8 gigahertz, get rid of the R in the T, just GHZ. It's just GHZ, and introduce
Introduce.
mid splits for more upstream capabilities. Just make it singular capability.
capability.
Yeah.
Just a quick thought here to the requirements of GAP. Do we want to say someplace that this will initially immediately allow achievement of the GAP target of 100 up or something?
Well,
I don't know how.
we mentioned. Oh yeah, I see. Maybe we'd
Yeah,
want.
let's peg it to what the GAP requirement is going to be, and then say this could be achieved with 1.8 gigahertz and da da da.
So I'm seeing a mid split deployment with a real world speed test of 117 up. So they can break 100.
Yeah. That
Okay.
sounds right.
And just say this will allow achievement of the GAP target of 100 up.
Just say achieving the target.
yeah.
Yeah,
We want to
yeah.
exceed it really. Like just achieving it is like it's like
Well.
still winning third place.
100
But that-
upstream. Yeah, 100.
That's true, but again, the minimum they need to meet the requirement of the grant. Okay, but this
It
will
needs to be
also allow
upstream now,
grade
not in the
improvement.
future. So they could wordsmith it that it's 35 now and it can get 100 later. So it needs to meet it now, not in the future.
And it's 100 Mbps.
Upload now.
And 1.8, so gigahertz has a capital G.
Oh, okay.
Yep. All right, so let's see what it says now.
Am I taking
Maybe
out
add-
this last sentence?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so this is we would support for parallel construction here. We support grant money for fixing blah 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 blah. This would mean extending.
Oh, and to extend the spectrum.
Well, I think you want to have a two sentences there.
Okay.
This would mean extending, or this would result in. No,
right.
that's not working. That would,
I think it's okay to put the and. It's program money
Okay.
for fixing degraded coax and for splitting those to
Oh,
under
yes.
500 homes passed and extend the spectrum 1.8 and introduce misplaced for more upstream capability to meet the gap grant requirement.
Yeah, and then after 100 megahertz upstream period, and
Okay,
then you return.
but you're gonna, I'm sorry to be such an editor here, but you're gonna want consistent verbs. So you got fixing, splitting, and then extend, introduce. Extending and introducing.
Sure.
Where, so, oh,
Is-
and make this extending?
Yes. Comma, past, comma, extending the spectrum. Yes, there's your comma.
Right.
Eh,
Take
Yeah,
out the
you've got a lot
and.
of ands in there.
Take the
Right.
and out before
Extending-
extending. Take that and out. Yeah, okay.
Mm.
Comma after gigahertz. Comma and introducing. There we go.
And then,
Okay.
right, and then
Okay.
a new paragraph where Comcast will continue to fully participate. That's
Yeah,
another
put-
bullet point.
Yeah, that is.
I
Hit the
need a
return.
few more things added
Just-
to be
just hit
comfortable
return.
with it.
Wait a
Sure.
minute, say again. So this is
Just-
a,
Hit return.
This is a new bullet here, so hit the
Yeah.
return right there, and you'll.
Okay.
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to say is upstream now, not in the future. So we got to specify that the technology has to do it today, not someday.
Upstream, right after the word upstream, just put now.
Now,
upstream at the end?
No,
or
at the
just
very
No,
somewhere?
end.
after capability.
The next one, I just,
No, put it after capability.
Is after the first one?
the
There.
second one, 100 Mbps upstream now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
period.
And I think the other thing is these changes would have to be applied town-wide, not just to the underserved parcels for identified under gap.
Ah,
Otherwise, we've set ourselves up for a disaster. So
I
these
guess,
changes we need
but
to apply town-wide.
sure. I'm less concerned about that because I think once they extend the spectrum, they can't really do it one part of town and not the rest of the town.
Right, there'll be crossover. They have to, there'll be,
I don't see how they do
Well, I
that.
think we should make it clear in there that this
All
should
right,
be
that's fine.
town-wide.
That's fine.
okay.
You know, if they roll
But-
this out town-wide, that's one way to solve the problem,
mhm.
you know?
Of course.
I mean, how about
of
just,
course,
let's go back to the solving the problem here, what the gap grant is after. Since the unserved gap parcels, are spread across the town.
Our town-wide.
Are town-wide, maybe.
There's your word. Because you had to get that in there somewhere. That's one word, not two.
And is it unserved or underserved?
It's both in the
Uh,
grant.
Both. So some, they're depending on how some grants are calling Bassett's unserved, some are calling under, so it's a mix of both. So I think we just should say underserved and unserved.
I mean, the
Okay.
current map
Gap parcels.
has Bassett's as a fully served.
If you pull up
it's
MBI's
too-
map that they made, they list Bassett's as unserved.
Okay.
Okay, you
comma.
could say that. What's the rest of that sentence going to be? 'Cause
Well, the
you
rest
could
of the
say-
sentence is, these technology improvements would also have to be implemented town-wide.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like
For
we
our
would
support.
We would,
These
we,
technology improvements would have to be these town-wide to the town-wide gap parcels. No.
That our support is contingent upon these improvements being applied town-wide.
And it- on technology improvements to underserved and gap parcels town-wide.
well, just say,
Yeah, because
Uh,
you can't
thus-
have town-wide in
no,
two
just say
sentences.
thus our support, the unserved and undisturbed gap parcels are town-wide. Thus, our support is contingent upon these improvements being implemented town-wide.
Yeah, improvements being
That's
implemented.
comma, and then, oh, all right.
Okay.
I would put a comma after. There you go. Yeah.
Implemented townwide?
Yeah,
Okay, townwide is not two words like this. It's
It is when you smith it.
when you what?
yeah.
When you, according to spell check, it keeps popping up as a separate word.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that depends on whether you're using it as an adjective or not. When it's an adjective, it's hyphenated. Chicago Manual of Style. But, you know, they don't expect us to be great writers, do they?
What's the population of Bourne?
About
20,
17,000 in
21,000.
the winter.
It's over 20.
Is it now?
What's the number of
Yeah.
houses?
Oh, yeah.
20,000?
Number of houses?
Yeah.
They're
I don't
dwelling
have that number.
units.
It's like 11,000, I think. You know, very similar to what the number of voters is.
There's no comma after support.
Do we want to make that last two sentences a separate bullet?
No, I think keeping it there
No,
is
they all
good because
fall in there.
yeah,
Right. Okay.
that same thought. Whether or not they will, how they will respond to this, we don't know. But if they read it, they'll obviously hear what we've been trying to tell them for a long time, which is, gee, we've got nothing against you, but your implementation is not so good. It could be a lot
Oh.
better.
We forgot to write fixing the seasonality. So we mentioned the seasonality is an issue, but so we support the grant money for fixing degraded, splitting to 500, going to 1.8, inducing mid splits, getting to 100 now, and for that speed to be consistent year round.
Yeah,
So-
again,
For
I mean,
cons-
my
For
thinking
consistent
was we
service
were,
year round.
my thinking was we were doing all this to address year round. I mean,
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I think that's superfluous, but you need to be explicit, I guess. I'm just worried that this is getting to be
Yeah.
wordy.
How
Yeah,
about putting year round in your very first sentence?
Our support is
Unreliable
contingent upon
year-round
these
service. How about that?
Yeah.
You're concerned with your current implementation and unreliable year-round service.
There, that, yeah,
Or
that's
is it
what I mean.
seasonal? I don't know.
Yeah.
I still think you could combine those last two sentences into something that's a little more punchy. Our support is contingent upon these improvements being implemented to unserved and underserved gap parcels townwide.
I think you can get rid of the
No.
next to last sentence, in my opinion.
Well, but if you want to get the unserved and underserved part, that's where you should put it, is in the last sentence, and then you can ditch the second to last sentence.
So the reason for the last sentence is that we want these improvements everywhere, not
Right.
just the
not just for
500
the
parcels.
underserved, right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
fine.
So
Filling the gaps provides them a vehicle to go and improve service townwide because they've got to hit parcels all over the town. That's
Yeah.
the rationale behind it.
So if you don't
Right.
need the words unserved and underserved, then you can ditch the second to last sentence. But if you want to include that as a flag or a contingency,
Well,
then
I think it's good because I think exactly what they'll put new equipment in to service very small areas that have no service right now, and leave the rest of us with the old stuff.
Yeah,
Then
like
wait,
they're gonna be
okay,
dropping a few
in that case, don't use townwide in the second to last sentence. Say are widely distributed, or something like that.
we want it
Yeah.
universal. So if you're going to be if you're taking the money to fill in those 500, you need to fix it for the whole town.
For everybody.
Else we don't
I-
want them having the money because we've just shot ourselves in the
Right.
foot.
Right. I think both of those sentences should stay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other changes to this? Okay, if you don't mind, again, because we've got some differences of opinion here, I'm going to do a roll call here. Okay. First, do we have a motion to approve this letter and forward it to the select board?
I'll make a motion to approve this letter and forward it to the select board.
Okay, do we have a
Second.
second?
Second,
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, let's do a roll call. Okay, Jed,
Yes,
John,
yes.
Brian,
I'm gonna make myself unpopular here. I don't think we should be sending it, but so I'll be a no.
okay. Let's see, Wendy,
I'm going to abstain because
okay.
I'm not totally happy with it, but I understand everybody's points.
Just to point out, okay, and I'm going to vote in favor.
So it
So
passes.
that, well, 1, 2,
311.
3-1-1. Okay, so it does not pass. Does not have a majority.
sure
Well, it
does.
has a majority of those in
Yes, it does.
attendance. How does
Yeah,
that
it
work?
passed,
Okay,
yeah.
It
Okay.
passes.
That passes. Yeah.
okay. Pardon my ignorance of Robert's rules here. Okay, so it does pass. Okay. Now, just in terms of mechanisms here, Anne Marie, how does this work? You've been making the edits here, I guess. Can you just do you need to send it to me for me then to send it on to Marlene and MJ?
You're on mute, Anne Marie. But I would think that's the process.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Send
okay.
it and CC Kathleen on it too, because she'll add it to the packet for this evening.
Yeah, so you're going to send. You've been doing the edits, right?
Yes, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Now I have another question with regard to just the procedure for the line by line comments on this on the other document. Everybody has seen that letter, maybe not reviewed it, but is there, Anne Marie, is there a second meeting on the 12th of the select board?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it's worthwhile at all for me to, in I guess it'd be in public comment because it's not on the agenda, to just give the select board a heads up that there's another detailed letter that's going to come next week, and we'll get a draft to them early on to review because it's long and tedious?
I would say it in public comment.
Okay, I will do that, and just say we've reserved the right in the previous letter to send these detailed comments. So I'm just letting them know that this is coming. MJ said, if push comes to shove, she would do a quick last minute meeting if there wasn't time to get it in one of the select board meetings on this. Call an emergency select board meeting and to go through this later. But I don't think that's necessary if she'll put it on the agenda for the 12th.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Okay, thanks to all of you for this impromptu meeting. I think it was very productive. And the next, actually, for the folks who want to, who are on the speed test committee besides Jed and me
Brian,
and Brian, if you guys want to stay on board, we will continue. And Jed, if you want to terminate, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
sounds good. I
Okay.
move that we adjourn the meeting.
Anybody John seconds. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and Jed, if you